What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here, PackersNews.com. Thursday afternoon, the Packers have wrapped up their minicamp, and the guys have hit the road, no doubt, the players. Coach is still in town, but they'll be getting out shortly. Now starts the long stretch, the one dead spot in the NFL calendar when personnel people and coaches hold their breath, hoping that no one gets in trouble for the next 5 weeks. But the next time we'll see the Packers on the field will be July 27th, the opening of training camp. I thought I'd jump on here late in the day on Thursday and see what's on your minds. Take any questions you might have, talk some Packers, and let you know that my latest podcast just went up at PackersNews.com. This week, Packers General Manager Brian Gutekunst joined me for a brief conversation, an overlook kind of at what he's accomplished so far, his first offseason as general manager in Green Bay. So as soon as we're done here, make sure you check that out. Good evening, everyone. Checking in the comments section. Very nice to see you all. Matthew, Ryan, hello to everyone. Steve, what's up? Gutekunst and I covered a bunch of topics. We covered everything really from the moment he was hired through the signings of Mercedes Lewis and Byron Bell, what he thinks about the squad he's assembled, and everything in between. So make sure you check it out. Any idea on the next chance to buy a share of the Packers? Good question. I would suspect the next time they win a Super Bowl, if that happens in the near future, I would think undoubtedly they would turn around and have that stuff ready for you. They like to inject themselves a little cash, take advantage of the goodwill, good feelings around the franchise every time that happens, so I tend to think that's the next time. That's just a guess, though. I don't have any inside info there. What do coaches like to take away from mini camps? Really good question. The biggest thing they like to see is if guys are transferring what is being taught in the classroom and kind of putting it up on its feet, so to speak, when they hit the field. Adjustments, learning from mistakes, because mistakes are going to happen. There's no doubt about it. There's athleticism, there's, assignment sureness, all that stuff. But really it's about, these are real install periods, and they want to make sure that guys have things cold. There's a lot of hours spent in meeting rooms during the kind of first part of the off season. And then OTAs and minicamp starts, and you start getting things up on their feet. Obviously, it's not real football. They're just in shorts and helmets, but that's your first look at some of these guys trying to grasp concepts and playbooks and adjustments and what have you. So that's one of the big reasons McCarthy is able to excuse his veterans. Those guys have been in the system for a long time, and even the guys who are veterans who are new to the team have been in the NFL for a long time. They know mostly what those things entail. Can we keep build a wall around Aaron Rodgers? I'm sure the Packers would like to, but you got to play the games, and you got to put some people in front of them and hope they hold up their end of the bargain. When are they going to sign Dez? Josh, I doubt they do unless there is an injury. That's always a kind of mitigating factor. I tend to think Dez will wait now until training camps start, because each and every year we see guys go down that first week, and then he may be able to look and see what's available. But I suppose he could always make a call, but I would be very surprised. Is there any chance the Packers give in and give Rodgers an opt-out? Dan, I would tend to doubt it. That's a really tough precedent to set, not just with the Packers, but around the league. That doesn't say they're not going to talk about it or not going to entertain the possibility. I tend to think that request will facilitate the Packers caving a little bit on a number of years, but I can't imagine giving him a straight-out opt-out anywhere in the contract. Brian, good question. What happened to Winston Moss? Who knows? Last year this kind of started this dance with the media he does, and I think it kind of went a mini viral yesterday. As I said, I think it's just a waste of everyone's time. Those sessions with the assistants in the media auditorium are tough enough to get through. I mean, they can be a real slog. It used to be you'd grab an assistant coach in the locker room or off in a hallway somewhere. Now they parade them all once a week on either side of the ball. and they force them to go up there on the podium. And it's clear that Winston Moss isn't comfortable with that setup, doesn't want to do it, and so he makes it as unpleasant as possible, basically. Who is an on-notice coach? I don't know, Timothy. I would think most of the on-notice coaches got let go at the end of last season. Will do, Barb. Odds they keep all 3 rookie wide receivers. The odds are not good, but never tell me the odds. They all look the part. It's all about making plays when given the opportunity. And it doesn't matter who you're out there with. It's about putting things on tape. MDS was out there, or I'm sorry, the rookies were out there today. You think about who's throwing them the football, and you think about, whether you're running with the starters or whether you're running with the third or fourth stringers, everything you're doing is being broken down on tape by coaches, not only your position coach, but by the head coach, by the personnel people. These guys are fighting for minimal spots on the roster, and they have to take advantage of every single rep. And the guys who are able to do that, and it's apparent, when you go to practice and you go to those long 2.5 hour under the sun in pads practices, and you see guys consistently day in and day out who are able to, they're running routes crisply and getting in and out of their breaks at the right depth and reading coverages the way the quarterback is reading them, making the right adjustments on the fly. When they're doing that at the end of practice as well as they were at the beginning of practice, and then they're doing that day in and day out, and when they make mistakes, they're not making it twice, they're getting it corrected. Those are the things that are going to jump out, and they're going to separate guys. And it's not as easy as, this guy made a great play, or this guy made an incredible catch. There's lots of guys in the league, and lots of guys who aren't in the league that are physically gifted. It is very much overcoming fatigue and overcoming or showcasing your mental acumen that separates these guys. That makes coaches' decisions easier. And we're not going to get any kind of answers there until we put those they put those pads on at the end of next month, and they start going. I guess now what is considered hard, but really, compared to what it used to be when they had 2-a-days and such, it's kind of Club Med. Aaron's Revenge Tour. Do you agree? I guess I think it's. I don't know what he's avenging other than, Barr breaking his collarbone. I think the 2 Minnesota games are going to be interesting. There's no doubt about that. But, it's not like the rest of the NFL has done anything. So, but yeah, I think the games against Minnesota will have some extra spice, so to speak. Do the Vikings have training camp spies? That's a good question. Obviously there's no way to really know. It used to be you were required to give teams a heads up if you were going to have somebody at practice. I don't know if that's still the case. I think it is. But now do they hire, because most of the guys in the league know, their brethren on other teams, and they would be able to, maybe not spot them, but they would know. But, would they hire, say, some rando to go sit at practice at Nitschke Field? Maybe, but that seems a bit too far even for the NFL. But you never know. I always had this kind of crazy idea that when you're in the what do you call it? The field outside of the Hudson Center, not Nitschke, the other side, the Hinkle Field. Even when they put up the barriers where it's so no one can see in, there's a house on the corner that if you lived on the second floor, you can look right in to practice. And I always had this kind of vague fiction idea. I was going to write a book about a Bears scout who bought that house just so he could live on the second floor and watch the Packers practice. This was a long time ago in my younger years. How much will Allison be involved in the offense this year? I think a great deal. I think he is your front runner to have that perimeter spot opposite of Adams. And as I've said many times before, Aaron Rodgers has shown that he trusts the guy and he will throw to him. So I think the ball will be spread around quite a little bit, as it always is in the Packers offense. But I think Allison, especially when you consider how much coverage will probably be rolled to Davante Adams, he's going to have every opportunity. What record does McCarthy need to keep his job? That's a good one. I don't think it's so much record because, if they go, say they start disastrously, let's say they start 1-5, and they end 9-7, get a wild card, go on a run, and win the Super Bowl. He's not going to lose his job unless he retires. But yeah, and they could also go 12-4, have a first round bye, and then lose in the divisional round. I still don't think he gets fired. But if Rodgers is healthy and they start, say, 4-3 or 5 and whatever, and they roll on and they're kind of uneven all year, and they end up, say, 10-6, 9-7, they miss the playoffs, I think then there'll be a serious conversation about McCarthy's job. But with a healthy Rodgers all year. But if they do what they've always done, which is make the playoffs and then we'll see, then I think Mike is safe. Will Mike McCarthy stop giving coach speak when he gets pushed on an issue that's sure to come up? Doubt it. That's something I've really kind of noticed with McCarthy as of late, is that the longer he's been in this job, the more he has leaned on lots of answers he's given before. And, part of it I understand, because he is, he adheres to certain beliefs and will always operate a certain way. And so if you're asking a question, yeah, it's going to be, his answer is going to be based in things we've heard before. But at the same time, I do think he has punted quite a little bit in a way lately that he didn't used to. I really think, a big part of this kind of push now with McCarthy on a 2-year deal, I think he really wants to win another Super Bowl and then retire. That's just guesswork on my part, but that's the feeling I get. Do you think we trade our first-round draft pick from the Saints? Doubt it. Maybe next year during the draft. Maybe they package it with their own pick and move up. But if you mean like this year for a player or something, I tend to doubt it. How are the defenders reacting to the new defensive coordinator? Guys seem to like him so far. But as he said yesterday when the press talked to him, they haven't allowed a point. They haven't given up a yard. It's the honeymoon phase. Everyone's excited. It's new. It's different. He has yelled a little bit, but that's football. Let's see what happens when the pads come on and things start flying. Kyle, what's up? Steve, was the Randall trade all about locker room fit? Steve, I actually asked Brian Gutekunst not quite that exact question, but pretty close on my podcast, which just went up at PackersNews.com. I hope you'll check that out. Do we trade for an outside linebacker? Ivan, I doubt it. I think they like what they've got. I think they're expecting big things from Vince Beagle and Reggie Gilbert. I'd be very surprised if they traded for an outside asset. Biggest area of need coming out of OTAs? It's got to be right tackle. I know they brought in Byron Bell. I know they're counting on Jason Spriggs and Kyle Murphy. And I know they're saying nice things about Brian Bulaga, but I'll say it again and again and again. I will be absolutely shocked if Bulaga's ready for week 1. I don't think any of those guys are a long-term answer at right tackle. So for me, that continues to be the glaring weak. It's not even it's a weak spot, but it's the one spot that worries you if you're looking at the roster. Any chance we re-sign Cobb? I think there is a chance, Dan. I know they had spoken to him about an extension earlier this offseason, and then things kind of cooled down, and they stuck with going into this 1 year. But I think, that's probably Cobb betting on himself. I think things should line up for him to be more productive this year, and that should increase his value. But, it could play the other way, too. I mean, you could have another kind of disappointing year as far as production goes, and they could determine it's time to let him go. But I do know they were interested in extending his deal earlier this offseason. Will they approach Bulaga again for a pay cut? I would think so. I would think that's kind of what the Byron Bell thing is about. That's, again, Brian hasn't said that outright, but they sure seem to be stocking up on bodies that can play right tackle. Possible the Packers try to draft another top corner in the supplemental draft. I'd be shocked. I don't think they're going to touch the supplemental draft. Will Wilkerson be an effective edge rusher? Riley, that's a really good question, because I think a lot of people only think of Wilkerson as an interior guy for obvious reasons, but he played all over the line under Pettin, and he did show some ability on the outside. Now, is he going to be their, quote, most effective? I don't know about that, but I do think you'll see him move up and down the line, including outside, in certain packages. And I think they're going to try and use a lot of different combinations to get to the quarterback. So that's definitely something to watch for when the pads go on. They start mixing and matching and start trying to find what works up front in whichever situation they're working on. Who else has a chance besides King, Jackson, Alexander, and Williams to make the defensive back roster spots? If you're talking about corner strictly, I'd give Lindsey Pipkins a real shot. I think he's got really good man coverage ability. I think he put some really good things on tape last year. A lot of that's going to be down to him, how much he comes back in shape and ready to hit the ground running, so to speak. But I think he's got the most ability out of those other guys that you didn't mention there. Emanuel Byrd sneaky number 2, number 3 tight end this season? Yeah, Kevin, I tell you what, I put it out on Twitter early this morning. I know a lot of people kind of assume he's going to be lost in the wash as a number 4, but I tell you what, it's not like any of the top 3 tight ends are going to be regulars on special teams. Maybe Kendricks. They may be Lewis too, but I know Graham is going to be. But, Byrd is a regular contributor, can be a regular contributor on special teams. He catches everything. The guy catches everything. And he did that the moment he came in last year when they picked him up late. And Rodgers is not afraid to throw to him. He threw to him all the time in practice last year, in camp. And, he's got some athleticism, and he can do what they asked Kendricks to do. So, I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe kept 4 tight ends or if Byrd made Kendricks expendable. Because, Kendricks is not exactly, he's not on a veteran's minimum contract. He's getting paid a couple $1 million. So they may feel that's a way to save some money. So we'll see. I mean, a lot of that that's why I kind of said this morning, it depends. He's got to hit the ground running. He's got to have a good start to camp and build on that success if he can. And then, I think he can make it a conversation. But, Kendricks is a pro, and he's been around for a while, and he does offer them athleticism, especially downfield. He's a good move H-back type, but I think Byrd can do that too. So we'll see. Graham like a wideout. Yeah, that's true, Jeff. Graham is basically a de facto wide receiver. Courtney, the rookie O-line, it's so hard to say anything about offensive line when pads aren't on. Guys know their assignments, and that's good. But there's basically no run work done in OTAs and minicamp. Guys are in shorts and just kind of running drill work, really. So we'll know a lot more once the pads come on. Do we have a hole at safety? I don't know about that, Riley. I think they've got some talent at safety. I think the big question is Josh Jones. Can Josh Jones turn things around? Because he had what I would consider a pretty disappointing rookie campaign. And to his credit, he has said pretty much the same thing. So I think that's a big question mark. But I wouldn't say they have a hole there. I think if he can't live up to the promise that they saw when they selected him in the second round, I definitely think they can play with Marlon Evans back there or with Kentrell Bryce. Those guys can play. I don't think they're superstars in the making or anything like that, but I wouldn't feel uncomfortable with them back there if I was the coaches. I mean, it's not like MD Jennings or one of those other guys from years ago where the safety play was just absolutely atrocious. Those guys can play, and they could absolutely contribute. How much of an impact does Joe Philbin make this year, AJ? I think considerable. I think we've spoken about it here before. I think ultimately his greatest asset with McCarthy is being able to tell McCarthy no. It's something McCarthy didn't get a whole lot of from Edgar Bennett. I think Joe just has the gravitas and the experience and the knowledge to say, we should be doing this, can't be doing that. And I also think he's a great kind of second set of eyes on game day. He does a really good job spotting tendencies, seeing tendency breakers, showing Mike how he can take advantage of certain things defenses are doing. I think Philbin is a pretty underrated addition this offseason, actually. Kenny Clark's ceiling, I think the sky's the limit for Kenny. I put a post up months ago, I think. A lot of people were surprised when Turkovac was fired. It really didn't strike me as surprising because I think Kenny Clark kind of hit a wall and didn't develop the way he should have last year. I think he should be a superstar. I think he should be Geno Atkins. I think he should be maybe not Aaron Donald, but he's got the ability and the upside to be kind of the second rung right below Donald. So, I think the sky is the limit for him. I think he's an absolute stud, and his ability, his physical ability, just the athlete that he is, playing at that spot, he can cause so many headaches for an offense in so many different ways. I'm excited to see what Pettigan can do with him. Is Clinton Dix a Packer next year? Excellent question, Alex. If I had to guess right now, I'd say no. But there's a lot of ball game left. Is Lowry on the bubble? Yeah, Steve, I don't know. I wouldn't put him on the bubble just yet, but he does have to hold his own. I think a big part of that will be Montravius Adams, and if they get any kind of development from him, and if he shows anything. They don't necessarily play the same spots on the line, but I think depth-wise, they've certainly got some there. And I think Lowry acquitted himself well his first couple years in the league, but I also think we've kind of seen his ceiling. I don't see much past what we've already seen. So if they have an opportunity, if they see an opportunity where they can improve and or get a guy in front of him who's got a higher ceiling, better, more athleticism, etc., I think they'll take it. How will the running back rotation look? Early on, I would say I'd expect it very much like we saw last year. We'll see Jamal Williams early with some sprinkling of Aaron Jones here and there, splitting possibly. You'll see Ty Montgomery on third downs probably. But eventually, I think you'll see Aaron Jones take that job. And then everyone else will be second fiddle. That's just guesswork on my part, but that's what I think. Montravius is going to be a surprise this year. Well, we'll see, Mike. Although it wouldn't be a surprise if you just told us. So you heard it here first, people. This is the surprise. Mike telling us that Montravius is going to surprise. And with that, I'm going to take off. Thanks a lot, everyone. I'm sorry if I couldn't get to your question. They do come by rather quickly, but make sure you're checking PackersNews.com. Like I said, my podcast just went up. Brian Gutekunst joined me and talked all about his first offseason as GM of the Packers. So check that out. Check out all our coverage from minicamp. I'll be here tomorrow. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a good night.